The work on this ordinance began last April, so we've been at this for a while, making sure that we look at all the different aspects of the changes that we're putting forward tonight. A few things to note for the changes. This will now bring our Norwalk ordinance into compliance with the state statute, which we had not been in the past. It will clarify the responsibilities of the homeowner versus the city. It outlines provisions for any corrections that need to be made, as well as clarify the construction standards for repairs and for new sidewalks. One thing that we addressed in the revisions is when a street is worked on, if 51% of the street is repaired, the sidewalks on that entire stretch will be replaced, thus mitigating any issues like we had on Dry Hill. So going forward, we addressed, a problem that we saw in the ordinance. So I wanted to just speak to this, and I wanted to thank the committee who really all worked hard, and we all worked together to put all our concerns on the table, and we worked through them. So I wanted to thank Mr. McCarthy for helping us get some of this on paper. Mr. Kimmel came to several of the meetings as well. Assistant Corporation Counsel Brian McCann worked hard on this as well. And I hope that everybody can support these changes.
Thank you. Further comments? Discussion? Mr. McCarthy.
And I'll do the same thing you did before and start by saying you didn't thank yourself, but I guess that would be odd. No, thank you to Shannon for sort of shepherding this through the way. And who would have thought back in, November, December of 2013 that we'd actually ever get here? And so I'd like to thank, of course, Mr. Alvord for being the sort of shepherd on that side as far as staff work and engineering things, and his input was invaluable as well. Then I'd also like to point out Ms. Stewart, who may be, gosh, the only person in this room who's ever changed my mind. No, I'm kidding. But I think it was a great example of how two people can come at something from different directions, have different opinions, and get to a good place. So thank you. We made changes based on your comments that I think are the right thing to do, and that will certainly serve the public for a long time to come. I'd also like to thank Doug. He was a good foil. A few of the things that I put in there that he pushed back very hard on, and we eventually got to a great place. And then another thing I never thought would happen is I'm going to finish this up by saying the person that I need to thank most is Mr. Watts, because I was telling the story before of how it kind of all started with sitting down over a grilled cheese sandwich and a Diet Coke and saying, okay, what do you want? And working forward from there in a good constructive conversation that we didn't agree on everything, and I'd probably say we still don't, but we got to a point, again, where we could compromise and agree, and there's a lot of lines that are crossed through if you look at this copy of this, and that's really the result of that. So I think it covers a lot of good things. If you step back and take a very long-term view, I think it's fair, and I hope everybody can support it. Thank you.
Mr. Watts, then Mr. Kimmel.
I remember that day. We're sitting down in a diner and someone approached us and said, "You guys are friends? Remember that? You guys actually working together?" Dave, I really want to thank you and Shannon. This could not have been done without your leadership and your guidance on it. I'm going to need some new materials on the sidewalks. But I'd like to thank everyone, for supporting this. I hope everyone does support it. There's some people that have some concerns, but anything that we do may not be perfect, and it's always something that we could build on towards the future. But it is something that has to happen in Norwalk. I know that the mayor has proposed some funding for sidewalks, and it's something that I definitely look forward to, and I have to thank them for showing some leadership on sidewalks, because if you actually are a pedestrian and you're walking on the sidewalks and you see someone pushing a baby stroller into the street because of the sidewalks are cracked, it's just something that I know as a city we could always do better, and this is definitely a step in the right direction. and also spells out, we are all in this together, homeowners, renters, whomever. We're all in this together, and you want to make sure that, any property that you own, you have some responsibility for it. And, a 10-year term to pay for it, I think, is more than fair to address that. Believe you me, if your sidewalk in front of your house is fixed or repaired, your value of your home is going to go up. I've never seen anyone, you watch any home show, curb appeal means everything. If your sidewalk is crumbling and cracking and someone is to praise your house and you see the sidewalk all banged up, believe you me, a better sidewalk shows that you're responsible, and it definitely helps the handicap. It definitely helps, the pedestrians who are using the sidewalk. So I urge my colleagues to support this.
Mr. Kimmel
Yeah,
and Mr. Bonifant.
hey, thank you. I think it's a great ordinance, and a lot of people did a lot of interesting things on this. One city agency that wasn't mentioned is the Corporation Counsel's Office, which I think played a very important role. If we think back to, and it was Diane, besides you, Diane had made the initial ruling on our own ordinance. If you, just to recall, sidewalks became an issue in the last mayoral election, and we're still a bit from the next election, and this is one election campaign issue that looks like it's going to become a reality. But soon after that election, I recall, we had some initial discussions about, well, how on earth do we do this? I kept hearing, well, the property owner is responsible, and nothing was really clear between snow removal and a broken sidewalk and stuff like that. And so I just called CCM, and they sent me the casework on what Connecticut law really was in relation to sidewalks, footpaths, snow removals, plus broken sidewalks. And we distributed the stuff, and it became apparent that our ordinance had some problems, that we were liable should there be an accident. And we had to do something, and we sent it over to Mario, who passed it on, and we did get a ruling indicating that's true. The case law was such, and we were over here, and we had to clean up our ordinance. And the initial discussions took place in DPW, and like always, it moved over to ordinance. And I remember when at the time I had some time to attend those meetings, and the question of what it does and what it doesn't do is really important. First of all, we're not talking about snow removal, whole separate set of laws. We're not talking about footpaths, whole separate set of laws. We're talking about broken sidewalks and fixing them, and it's very, very expensive. And so it gets out of DPW and it gets into ordinance, and so the issue is who pays, what if they can't pay, how do we get it fixed, and what is the city's liability if it doesn't get fixed, and we know about all these complicated issues, and Brian did an excellent job with the committee. And I think what we have now on paper will allow us to not only alleviate the burden on property owners while we get the sidewalks fixed and pay for, with a minimal burden on taxpayers. That's the thing, because this is very, very expensive stuff. In fact, according to Hal, it costs more per foot to fix sidewalks than to pave roads. We also have a study now, which we didn't have a few years ago, on the condition of our sidewalks in, I guess you would say, the more urban part of the city. We have to look at that closely. We haven't really studied it yet. We'll have a better idea what we can do, when we can do, how much we can do, as soon as we get a handle on the data in that study. But all in all, when you start to look at some of the things that are happening in Norwalk, we finally got our sidewalk act in order. We want to increase road paving by $500,000. We're moving ahead on 95-7. The POCO thing probably will resolve itself one way or the other. So hopefully a lot of small things that have been out there, small and large things that have been out there for a while, are finally coming together, and this is a good time for the city. And I would like to echo what was said previously. A lot of people took part in this, and this was more complicated than you would think. sidewalk, what could be complicated by that? By something so basic, and it's extremely complicated, and now I have a better understanding of why sidewalks in so many towns and cities around the country are not in such hot shape. It's not so simple to deal with, but we managed to get at least our ordinance in place. We have the money in our capital budget, so next year we should really begin to implement this program. Thanks to everybody who took part in it.
Mr. Bonifant?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I have a different opinion than most people here. Maybe I have a different perspective, because I think I might be the only one here who has a sidewalk that would be responsible for his sidewalk. Right? I don't think anybody else in the room has one that they're responsible for, except for Mr. Petrini on your business. Okay, I'll give you that. Okay, but I don't think we addressed the fairness issue at all here. What you're looking at is some people in Norwalk are going to get a notification, they're going to get a fine, they're going to get a bill for $10,000 when the city comes out and fixes your sidewalk for you. You're going to get an interest payment for 10 years, and you're paying taxes on a capital budget for next year is going to be $1 million, and those are going to be to be fixing up free sidewalks for 2 streets over. So how are you going to feel when you get that all laid upon you, and you get a lien on your house, and your tax dollars went to give a free street sidewalk, a free sidewalks on the next street over? So I have a real problem with that, and that wasn't resolved in the committee. And another small point here, maybe it's not so small, is the body that's going to approve this, that makes the law. If you have a problem with this and you want to appeal a decision by anybody, the appealing board is the same board that made the law. It's the Public Works Committee. So that's not fair. You're barking up no tree whatsoever in case you have an issue. So I don't think that this is a fair thing, and I would like to just say, from the perspective that I see, that's great that everybody's got good ideas about this, but you're not sitting in the same boat that I am, looking at the responsibility that I have. And I'm just trying to speak up for the people that are going to get this laid upon them while they're paying for other people's sidewalks, who are going to get them for free. So there you go.
Mr. Kites?
Rich, very good points. Thank you. I was just going to say, as you all know, driving around, we've had an extreme winter. Sidewalks, roadways have lifted from the ground freezing, and it's real bad out there. I think we need to do something, and I want to thank Satulji and Durko and everyone for what they've done. And Mayor Rilling, $1 million in the sidewalk budget is going to be well used this year, and I will be supporting this. Thanks.
Mr. Hempstead?
No, I know we've done a lot of kudos tonight, but I think a lot of people else out there don't realize the time and effort that goes in out of our time being volunteers to make things happen. And patience of a saint, I think Ms. Tuji and Durko had the patience of a saint, first of all dealing with Dave and then dealing with me about minutiae, because I'm always the what if guy, but what if we do this? And, well, it says may instead of shall, and it has a different connotation. But also a patient of the saint is Mr. McCann. I really hats off. He sits through those meetings, takes copious notes, comes back. We don't think he's listening. He's heard everything. He gets back to us in a very timely fashion. And I just want to compliment the office that you have a fine employee there.
He's overrated.
But I think I share concerns with Mr. Bonifant, because that part's of my discussion. Part of me is like, how do we make the public obligated for something the city really kind of owns? But I get it's a across the country law. It's problematic by itself the way it's created. So I had to take off that hat that struggled with this with the 51% compromise. I think got us there. Mr. Mushak, though, publicly kind of brought up about the plan about who decides on sidewalks, whether they're concrete or asphalt. and that question came up in our committee, and unless I'm missing something, I thought we were told there really is no specific one plan. And the way I understand law in the state of Connecticut, the legislative body with authorization or signature by the mayor in this case in our town is the only way to establish a plan. So I think we need to look forward and try and address those concerns going down the path of where does the sidewalk end. Thank you.
Mr. Kimmel.
Yeah, the fairness issue is very important to a lot of people. On the one hand, we had to operate in the context of Connecticut state law. We had no choice for a variety of reasons. And my understanding going forward, as we move forward, we are in a position to tweak anything we want. Now, on the fairness issue, my understanding, now I know I was not able to attend some ordinance committee meetings towards the end, but initially, I am currently under the impression that moving forward, the way we will deal with sidewalks is that those sidewalks that are in any way disturbed or damaged, or there's certain drainage issues as a result of paving, will be repaired at the city's expense. If the city caused the damage, the city will be responsible. We cause the damage. Sometimes when you do fix a road, you have an impact on the sidewalks, especially around drainage issues. So when there is a road, when the sidewalk repair is a consequence of that street being improved, then the city pays, and there is a separate line item in the capital budget to address those kinds of sidewalk issues. The $1 million, in my mind, the $1 million in the capital budget is for a sidewalk repair not associated with damage caused by road repair, separate. And thus, for instance, if Mr. Iannacone's sidewalk is damaged because we fixed the road in front of his house, and suddenly his front lawn is being flooded, the city repairs it out of a certain budget. It's our responsibility. If over the years, Rich, for no reason, other than no reason at all, your sidewalk needs to be repaired, nothing you did or anyone else, under state law, it's your responsibility. That's the dilemma that we faced. And we would have to begin working with you. Okay? Now, you may see as a fairness issue, but the problem goes back to the laws and who's responsible and who's liable. The issue is so if we say we got to be fair, we can't, we're going to be fair, we'll leave you alone, we're not going to fix it, we'll let it be, and someone trips and has a serious accident, and we know about it, we're busy being fair, you're not even though you're responsible to get it fixed, because we know about it, we're liable legally for a major lawsuit. And that's the way the law reads, and that's the opinion we got. So we're kind of stuck in this very difficult situation here. We want to make sure this is as fair as possible. As a city, we've got to protect ourselves in case there is some tragedy. We have tonight something similar that deals with a road. Okay, we know about it, but it's a tough situation, and I hope as we move forward and see how this works out, we'll look at the fairness issue a little bit more. Ultimately, maybe the state will change its laws. Give us a little bit more money for education, we'll have a little bit more money to spend on sidewalks, and we'll just fix them all ourselves. Thank you.
Mr. Watts? No.
Okay. Rich, we live in the same district, and there's a lot of sidewalks in District A and B. So I completely understand what you're saying. I think, Mr. Halbert, we have 140 miles of sidewalk. We determined that is the distance between here and Philadelphia. That's a lot of sidewalk. From here to Philadelphia, that is 140 miles.
Better put another million in.
And $1 million is only a drop in the bucket. I think that was some testimony Mr. Albert said, that, to repair all the sidewalks in the city 140 miles, what do you estimate that would cost? Millions, right? So my thinking was always when we put the road paving and the sidewalks, it should be put out to bid as a package. The reason being is because I've seen where they paved the road and they fixed some sidewalks, and then I seen them pave the road and then they left the sidewalks crumbling. I don't think that's that's a smart way. I think that if we were able to put the bid out to say that you're bidding on paving that road, you're bidding on also repairing any sidewalks on that road that need to be repaired. I think that we could get our bang for our buck by doing that. So the street schedule, you could go, and any work that needs to be done, whether it's the road, also the sidewalk, it could be repaired by the city. If it wasn't on the road paving, then there would be some kind of responsibility that went back towards the homeowner, because ultimately the homeowner is responsible for the sidewalk. And we want to make sure that, this is just one step, if it doesn't work well, to make any kind of adjustment. Because I wouldn't want a homeowner to feel overwhelmed and feel like their equity was being robbed away from them because they have a lien on their property because the city made an enhancement in front of their property. I do believe any enhancement, whether it be a sidewalk or siding or roof, fence, any improvement to a property is gonna make the property more attractive. That's just the way I feel about it. And any lien per se, like say for instance a landlord, or someone who was an investor, who didn't take responsibility to make sure the road was, the sidewalks were safe for pedestrians, people who actually use the sidewalk. Sometimes, I've knocked on a lot of doors in the past and I'm walking on the street and it's just mind-boggling of how long the city has gone without having a real comprehensive plan. It's very complicated formula, so it's not perfect. I would never suggest that it's perfect, but at this time, we are actually trying to address something that is a civil right for people. You should be able to use the street if you don't have transportation. You should be able to use your wheelchair on the sidewalk. You shouldn't have your wheelchair in the street because you can't use the sidewalk. That's a civil right issue. Everyone should be allowed to travel, whether on foot, by bike, by car, whatever it takes to get you from point A to point B, and you should be able to do that safely. And I think that Norwalk I've lived in a lot of different cities in my life, and by far, Norwalk is the greatest city. I know some people in my hometown would challenge me on that, but I truly believe that. But there's one thing that we need to, I like Star Trek too.
No, wait a minute, that's not it. I gave her the horns.
Is that part of your presentation? Like this?
Thanks.
The ambulance ready to take us out.
So I think that, Rich, we should just continue to work on that as we're in the same district. And maybe the folks from B and other people, other council members who have a lot of sidewalks, to try to continue to build and have the dialogue before it gets to that point where, it gets to a point where homeowners are feeling like this is not working for them. We could continue having a dialogue. I will say that on a common council, I've never ever felt like in any committee we would treat a citizen, wrong. you know, I just feel like I think that we will probably be more sympathetic than probably some of the department heads around here. That's just my opinion. But I think we should continue the conversation. I think that it's not perfect, but it is getting us into the right direction. And if we can encourage when it goes out to bid, to try to come up with something that's a little more creative, we get a bang for our buck and have a real sidewalk plans. It's posted. These are the sidewalks that are going to be fixed. You could go to the city, you could look and see, and there's actual plan that's kind of laid out year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. I think that people wouldn't mind chipping in if they know that eventually, you know, they might get some other service. They might be paying for it on this end, but they might get some other service down the road.
Ms. Bowman?
I recognize this as a great start. I know Councilman Watts and Councilwoman Stewart worked on this. You know, so in South Norfolk, we do have a lot of sidewalks. You know, the payment plan that you all got put in, I thought that was great. Because it is a concern, like you said, Rich, with, you know, folks having to pay for sidewalks. I could think of one road we were just talking about, which is Gardner Street, where people park on the sidewalks, and then it's like, whose fault is, you know, those sidewalks are in bad shape, so whose fault is that? So, you know, I think as this rolls out, we'll learn of new issues, and then we'll keep working on it. But I think it's a great start, like everyone said.
And I really want to thank the committee for working on that and everybody who's concerned about the sidewalks. You know, it's really, and there's a lot of good things happening in Norwalk right now. I think we can all be proud of what's going on, and it's all about quality of life. And if you fix up your streets and you fix up your sidewalks and you pick up litter and do those kinds of things, your community starts to take on a sense of pride. And I think it's good for our community to start working on the infrastructure and making sure that we, for years to come, properly fund road paving, properly fund sidewalks, making sure that we're making Norwalk the best it can be. Because Mr. Watts is right. If you walk on the sidewalk, or you have a baby carriage to push, or if you're walking in a walker, you can't walk on some of the sidewalks, and it's about time that we start taking care of some of them. You know, the other alternative, Mr. Bonifant, is if we find people, and we'd rather find a way of being able to fix the sidewalks and making it as the least inconvenient it can possibly be for people. So I thank the hard work of the committee and everybody that took care of this. And certainly, Brian McCann, your accolades have been praised over and over again for all that you've done to work with the committee on this as well. So no further discussion. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Abstentions?
Been there, man. I've been there, man.
Motion carries 13-1.